a Wikividi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Russian presidential election, 2018. The 2018 Russian presidential election will take place on the 18th of March 2018. The first round will be held on Sunday the 18th of March 2018. If in the first round no candidate attains an absolute majority of the votes, then according to the law, a second round will take place exactly 3 weeks later, on the 8th of April 2018. On the 6th of December 2017, incumbent President Vladimir Putin announced that he would seek re-election for a second consecutive term and fourth term overall. Putin is widely expected to win, and has consistently scored higher than 40%, and often much higher, in opinion polls since the last presidential election. Background: the President of Russia is directly elected for a term of 6 years, since being extended from 4 years in 2008, during Dmitry Medvedev's administration. According to Article 81 of the Constitution of the Russian Federation, a candidate for president must be at least 35 years old and has to have permanently resided in Russia for the past 10 years, and cannot serve more than 2 terms consecutively. Parties with representation in the State Duma are able to nominate a candidate to run for the office, while candidates from officially registered parties that are not in parliament have to collect at least 100,000 signatures. Independent candidates have to collect at least 300,000 signatures, with no more than 7,500 from each federal subject of Russia and also from action groups made up of at least 500 people. The nomination process took place during Russia's winter holiday period, and the 31st of January 2018 was the last day for submitting signatures in support of contested access candidates. Change of date. On the 3rd of March 2017, Deputies Andrei Klishas and Anatoly Shurokov submitted to the State Duma draft amendments to the electoral legislation. One of the amendments involves the transfer of elections from the 2nd to the 3rd Sunday in March, i.e. from 11 to the 18th of March 2018. According to Article 5, Paragraph 7 of Russian Federal Law No. 19/FZ, if the Sunday on which presidential elections are to be held coincides with the day preceding a public holiday, or this Sunday falls on week including a public holiday or this Sunday and is declared to be a working day, elections are appointed on the following Sunday. The second week of March includes International Women's Day, which is an official holiday in Russia. The bill passed through the State Duma and Federation Council without delay in May 2017, and was signed into law by Vladimir Putin on the 1st of June 2017. On the 15th of December, the upper house of the Federal Assembly, the Federation Council, officially confirmed that the 18th of March 2018 will be the date of the election, officially beginning the process of campaigning and registration for candidates. This date is significant in the country as it is the 4th anniversary of Russian annexation of Crimea. Free access. Political parties represented in the State Duma and/or the legislative bodies of not less than 1/3 of the federal subjects could nominate a candidate without collecting signatures. The following parties could nominate candidates without collecting signatures: Civic Platform, the Communist Party of the Russian Federation, the Liberal Democratic Party of Russia, Just Russia, Rodina, and United Russia. On the 1st of July 2017, Chairman of Rodina Alexei Shuravlyov announced that the party will only support incumbent President Vladimir Putin in the election. On the 11th of December, the leader of Civic Platform Rifat Shaykhutdinov also said that his party will support Putin. On the 24th of December, the leader of Just Russia Sergei Mironov commented that the party is not going to put forward a candidate. Senior party member Mikhail Yemelyanov confirmed that the party will support Putin's candidacy. Contested access. Individuals who belong to a party without any seats in the State Duma had to collect 105,000 signatures to become candidates, while those running as independents had to collect 315,000 and also form a group of activists made up of at least 500 people. Multiple political commentators, including former presidential hopeful Irina Karkamada, talked about the difficulty of gathering signatures without the support of a political party, which casted doubt on many of the claims of the large number of people who said that they would run for president as independents. However, according to SEC chairwoman Ella Pamfilova, The conditions for contested access candidates were easier than ever, because they no longer had to collect 1 million signatures. Pamphilia incorrectly predicted that there could be even more candidates in this election than there were in 2000, when the election was contested by 11 candidates. Party of Growth. In July 2017, Party of Growth announced that it would hold primaries to nominate a presidential candidate. 4 candidates participated in the primaries: Oksana Dmitrieva, Dmitry Potapenko, Dmitry Marinishev, and Alexander Hodge. Voting was conducted via the internet from August to November 2017. On the 10th of August 2017, the party's press secretary told the media that the results of the primaries will be taken into account at the party congress, which will be held to decide the candidate for Party of Growth. However, the winner of the primaries would not guarantee themselves the right to run on behalf of the party. On the 26th of November, it was announced that the party would nominate Boris Titov, who was not involved in the primaries. According to a person from the party leadership, none of the proposed candidates were able to obtain sufficient support. Left Front. On the 2nd of November 2017, the Left Front headed by Sergei Udaltsov started online primaries for the nomination of a single left-wing candidate. Primaries were held in 2 rounds. The first round took place from 2 to 23 November, and the second round from 24 to 30 November. The first round included 77 candidates, among whom were representatives of various left-wing political parties and organizations, including Pavel Grudinin, Yuri Boldyrev, Gennady Zyuganov, Sergei Mironov, Sergei Glaziev, Zakhar Prilepin, Viktor Ampelov, Valery Zorkin, Georgy Selfarov, Sergei Baburin, Natalia Lizytsina, Maxim Surygin and others. Boldyrev and Grudinin made it through to the second round, which was won by Grudinin, who garnered 4,086 votes. At the end of December 2017, Grudinin was officially nominated as the candidate from the Communist Party. Third Force. The Bloc Third Force held primaries among candidates from 10 non-parliamentary parties to nominate presidential candidates. According to the organizers, the primaries would determine 4 presidential candidates representing different views. The official presentation of the candidates was held on the 30th of October 2017. The candidates included Andrei Bogdanov, Andrei Getmanov, Olga Onyshenko, Stanislav Polishuk, Syrazdan Ramazanov, Ildar Zyapov, Vyacheslav Smirnov, Irina Volinets, and Alexei Zolotuhin. However, the bloc failed to identify a clear winner. Then all candidates, except for Olga Onyshenko, has declared that they would participate in the elections. Later, however, all of the candidates refused to participate. Sergei Baburin. Sergei Baburin was nominated at the party congress on the 22nd of December 2017. On the 24th of December, Baburin filed registration documents with the SEC, but SEC rejected Baburin's bid on the 25th of December, because it identified violations in the information provided regarding 18 of his party's 48 representatives. On the 29th of December, Baburin again resubmitted the documents and they were approved by the SEC. Russian All People's Union started to collect signatures in support Baburin on the 9th of January 2018. Signatures were collected in 56 federal subjects. On the 30th of January 2018, Sergei Baburin handed over the signatures to the SEC, when testing revealed only 3.28% of invalid signatures, due to which Sergei Baburin was admitted to the election. Pavel Grudinin. At the end of November, Pavel Grudinin won the primaries of Left Front, a coalition of left-wing parties with no representation in the State Duma. Some branch of the Communist Party voted to support the candidacy of Grudinin did not deny his nomination from the Communist Party, despite the fact that in early November the first secretary of the Communist Party, Gennady Zyuganov, said that his nomination is supported by all left-wing organizations, which the media felt that this was the official statement Zyuganov to participate in the election. However, later, Zyuganov denied this, saying that the official decision will be made at the party congress in December. On the 21st of December, it was reported that Zyuganov proposed to nominate Grudinin. Initially, the Communist Party and the National Patriotic Forces of Russia planned to nominate a single candidate, Grudenin or Yuri Boldyrev. It should be noted that Boldyrev also participated in the primaries of Left Front, in which he lost in the second round to Grudenin. According to the deputy Alexander Yushchenko, Gennady Zyuganov was still among the candidates for the nomination. He named the other candidates as Yuri Afonin, Sergei Levchenko, and Leonid Kalashnikov. On the 22nd of December, Zyuganov, Levchenko, and Kalashnikov withdrew their bids, and Zyuganov rejected the candidacies of Afonin and Boldyrev, leaving Grudenin as the sole candidate. Grudenin was officially selected as the presidential candidate from the Communist Party at its Congress on the 23rd of December. Alexei Navalny. Russian opposition figure and anti-corruption blogger Alexei Navalny started his presidential campaign on the 13th of December 2016. In early 2017, he traveled to different cities across Russia to open campaign offices and meet with his supporters. Despite his involvement in ongoing legal cases that may bar him from running, as noted in an article by Newsweek and by the former Russian presidential administration advisor Gleb Pavlovsky, the American-style campaign by Navalny is unprecedented in modern Russia, as most candidates do not start campaigning until a few months before the election. The primary focus of Navalny's campaign is combating corruption within the current government under Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev. On March 2nd, Navalny published a documentary on YouTube titled "He Is Not Demon to You," detailing the corrupt dealings of Prime Minister Medvedev. He then called for mass rallies to be held on March 26 to bring attention to this after the government made no response to the documentary, which over 100,000 people were said to have attended across the country. The March 26 rally was the largest protest held in Russia since the protests in 2011. Since then, Navalny has called for another protest to be held on Russia Day, which is June 12. On his website, Navalny lists the main principles of his presidential program: combating government corruption, improving infrastructure and living standards in Russia, decentralizing power from Moscow, developing the economy instead of remaining in isolation from the West, and reforming the judicial system. His more specific economic proposals include instituting a minimum wage, lowering prices of apartments, and reducing bureaucracy of home construction, making healthcare and education free, lowering taxes for many citizens, taxing the gains from privatization, decentralization of financial management and increase in local governance, increasing transparency in state-owned firms, implementing work visas for Central Asian migrants coming into the country for work, and increasing economic cooperation with Western European states. In April 2017, it was reported that Navalny's campaign staff had collected more than 300,000 pledged signatures from people across 40 regions of Russia electronically. More than 75,000 people signed up to volunteer for his campaign, and nearly $700,000 has been donated. However, his eligibility was put into question by his 5-year suspended sentence for accused embezzlement of timber from the company Kieroffles, back when Navalny had been working as an aide to Governor Nikita Belik of the Kirov Oblast. The Russian Supreme Court overturned his sentence in November 2016 after the European Court of Human Rights determined that Navalny's rights were violated and sent it back to a district court in the city of Kirov for review. In February 2017, the district court upheld Navalny's suspended sentence. The Constitution of Russia does not allow convicted criminals to run for office, so it is believed his candidacy will be rejected. Navalny promised to appeal the result to the ECHR and said he will continue campaigning, while in early May the deputy head of the Russian SEC commented that he would not be allowed to run unless the sentence is overturned. In August, the head of the SEC, Ella Pamfilova, reinforced this sentiment, saying that it would take a miracle for Navalny to be granted permission to run. She cited 2 scenarios in which Navalny could run if his conviction is overturned, or in the event that federal election law is urgently changed to allow those with criminal convictions to run. Pamfilova added that the possibility of either scenario unfolding was extremely low. Pamfilova later commented that Navalny could legally run for president by some time in 2028, i.e. 10 years after his sentence expires. The Memorial Human Rights Center recognized Navalny as a political prisoner. Members of the Navalny campaign have been harassed and detained by the police, including his chief of staff Leonid Volkov, who was sentenced to 30 days in jail in early December for organizing an unauthorized rally in Nizhny Novgorod. Navalny published his election manifesto on 13 December 2017, 2 days prior to the official start of campaigning. He officially submitted his documents for registration as a candidate on 24 December 2017, and was rejected by the SEC the following day due to his conviction. Later that same day, the 25th of December, Navalny called on his supporters to boycott the election in response. Mass street protests are planned for the 28th of January 2018. Brought to you by Wikividi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?